Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Team Time. For those of you who haven't joined us before, Team Time is kind of our opportunity to bring in the experts and to pick their brains. You know, as much as I've studied, I've spent the past 20 years trying to figure myself out, trying to figure out how to help people with eating disorders, and I by no means know everything. So I always say you don't have to be smart, you just have to have smart friends. And so our smart friend this week is going to be Dr. Jenny Tufenkian, and she is a naturopathic physician and a primary care doctor in Oregon. And for those of you who have been listening, like my big thing is I like to try to weave in things that are more sustainable, that kind of steer away from drugs as much as possible and try to steer more towards how can we help ourselves naturally. So there aren't those side effects and that sort of thing. And so this is what I absolutely love about Jenny. And I have learned so much. She did a live cast called Get Healthy, Stay Healthy. Probably 3-4 weeks ago, was it, Jenny?
It was in March. So yeah, about maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was absolutely amazing. Like just when you think that you're pretty smart and you've done a lot of reading, you realize that there's so much to learn, about stress reduction and all of this. So could you just kind of outline the foundations of health as you did in that one?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm just so excited to be able to talk with your people. It's so fun for me to be able to share. And life is always a journey of learning more and discovering more for me every single day. I hope that I learn something new. So yes.
Yeah.
So the health foundations, I put together this course when the pandemic first hit. And it was because I realized that it's so easy for us to get triggered emotionally when we feel like our control is lost, like we don't have any control. And if there's ever something to make you feel like you don't have control, it's this random new virus where we don't know what it's doing to us. We're not sure how to treat it. We don't know who it's going to impact. And then we have all of this worldwide shutdown, which triggers all this other emotional stuff around fear. And so I know that for myself, the more that I know how to take care of my health foundations, the more I know how to take care of this body, this thing that I live in, the more confident I can feel. And even though it's insane out there, I begin to experience more calm and confidence here inside. And then I have more clarity to make a decision about what I'm going to do next. So that's my big why for creating this program, was so that people could have the tools they need for their health foundation, so they can have optimal digestion, so it will boost their immune system, so they can sleep better and move better and breathe. All these things really affect our mental health, our energy, and our immune system, which all needs supporting right now.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I found absolutely fascinating was your talk on the gut biome. And I know the gut biome is strongly linked to depression. Essentially, if you don't have a healthy gut biome, it creates all kinds of even mental health issues. So could you kind of just talk about how to keep a healthy biome and some things that we can do to kind of like support that healthy gut biome?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. But let me just say first that yes, I mean, we now know that the gut and the brain are so interrelated. Like, we almost call them the same thing, which sounds really weird because it's not how we were raised to think, right? I mean, like the gut's down here and the brain's up here. But actually our neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, they're created largely in the gut. And how we feel, that gut feeling it really affects how our brain works.
Yeah.
So they're super interrelated. So yes, healthy digestion is super important, and a gut microbiome. So the microbiome is really, I call it the neighborhood. What's in your neighborhood? Like, are they good guys or bad guys, or kind of, neutral guys that'll side to the bad if it's bad, or they'll side to the good if it's good. It's sort of, I think of it. I'm sorry, I kind of think of it like a frat house, it's like they like to, you want to have the good frat party, not the bad frat party in your gut.
Yeah.
So to optimize that, you really, really, really want to have, first of all, I think just starting with thinking about where does digestion start? It actually oddly starts in the mind.
Yeah.
It starts with this anticipation of eating, and we want to be it's ideal to be in a state of rest and digest and be ready to receive the food. That's like number one. Not that I always do that. I really, there are times I just stress eat. I'm like, oh my God, I get to this meeting and I have to eat fast. Chewing your food is so important. People don't think about how just the basics of chewing your food and getting that digestive enzyme amylase going in your mouth, and that triggers a whole cascade all the way down your digestive tract into your stomach and your small intestines to really be able to break down that food completely. And then I always talk about you've got to have you want to have the right kind of materials for those gut bugs that are parting to build the structures that they need to do so they can build little houses to reproduce. It's not exactly how it is, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And you need fiber for that. You need fiber, just more fiber, which is where I come in with just eating more vegetables. I love eating vegetables, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. And it's so easy. Like at first I was like, I don't want to eat a bunch of salads, but it's amazing. You can throw spinach and kale and all of that in just about anything. And you really don't notice it.
Yeah, totally. I just was talking with this friend the other day and she said, so how do you get vegetables in for breakfast? And I was like, all right, so here's the deal. If you eat eggs, it's super easy because you can steam up some spinach and put your eggs on top of that. If you do fried or poached eggs, super yum, super fast too.
Yeah.
Or if you do scrambled eggs, you just throw in like half a cup of parsley or a quarter cup of parsley into the scrambled eggs. Parsley is so nutrient dense. It's super easy.
Yeah.
Or you can stick it in a smoothie, or just, I saute greens and just have sauteed greens with whatever I need.
A little bit of garlic. Oh, yeah, love it.
Yeah, some olive oil and salt and some greens, and then I have it with leftover fish or meat, or if I'm having a vegan breakfast, I'll stick it on a bowl of beans. I think outside the box for breakfast.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I'm trying to go more plant-based just because I'm trying to kind of bring down the inflammation in my body.
Yeah.
And but when people think of vegan or vegetarian, everyone thinks of salads. But, it's amazing how many recipes there are out there. And once you start to, go just Google vegetarian recipes and it's amazing, like the amount of recipes you can come up with that are just absolutely amazing and tasty.
Yeah, absolutely. I love plant-based foods because it gets people eating more vegetables, and there's just plants are awesome. And I agree that for the environment and for our bodies, often eating less meat is less inflammatory for sure, and it's better for the planet for sure. I tend to warn some people off from eating a ton of cold vegetables all the time, especially in the wintertime. If you live somewhere like you do or I do where it's cold in the wintertime, it's too cold. Like I don't totally understand all of Chinese medicine, but I know enough that they really feel like if you have a damp constitution, you don't want to be sticking cold stuff down there all the time. So I'm all about the warmer vegetables in the wintertime. Yeah.
Well, and it was interesting. So I had gone to a training course, and it was with the Army. And so of course, our Army snacks, they tend to be like high sugar, lots of junk food. And so I spent a week eating that. So of course my gut biome was just overjoyed, like my bad gut biome, just feeding off of the sugar.
Yeah.
And then I followed that up with a plant-based medicine conference. And of course they're feeding us breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's really high in fiber, lots of greens and all of this. And my system went crazy because, once it doesn't have that sugar to feed off of, it was just starting to die off and just getting everything out of my body. And it was kind of a shock to the system, but it's amazing how much better you feel.
How did you feel? How was that hard for you, that transition? How did you feel?
It really was. Well, even coming, because I came from Germany to Texas, so even my circadian rhythms were off. But and I'll be honest, the first couple of days, and this is what a lot of people feel when they transition, is you feel kind of bloated. I had a lot of loose stool, and I was like, oh, like I thought I was eating healthy, but it was just because all of that bad gut, I call it my gut bomb. I was killing my gut bomb. I was starving it because I wasn't feeding it sugar.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it just can take a little bit of time to transition. Sometimes it helps to take, some people find it's easier if they take some probiotics that can help kind of balance you to keep the gut microbiome a little bit on the healthier side, even when you're eating foods that aren't so great for you. So that can be kind of a nice thing. But yeah, that transition can be kind of interesting.
Oh yeah.
And did you have intense sugar cravings? Because you've been eating all the high carb foods and then you stopped, did your brain go like, give me more sugar?
Well, I don't, well, so here, okay, so this, well, okay, I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Okay.
Because I always get this question about, okay, because some people say, oh, fruit is high in sugar. And so you should, stay away from the sugar in the fruit. And so when you're asking me, was I, craving sugar, I was eating a lot of fruit. So I think it did kind of ease the transition. But I guess my question is kind of, when we're talking about a healthy gut biome and a healthy balanced diet, like where does fruit fit into that?
Yeah. So I'm going to be really, I'm going to say it depends. It depends. It depends on you, the person. It depends on the person. It depends on their gut and what foods work well with them. It depends on their history with sugar addiction, and it depends on which fruits. And so it's not a black and white. There's just nothing black and white about it. I can't say yes for all or no for all, because I would be wrong. It's very individualized. It depends on what you're going through. So if somebody, I think some people, sugar can be a real trigger for them in terms of sugar addiction and not eating well. And the signs of that are usually pretty obvious. It's that insatiable craving. It's that I'm not craving it because, I mean, sometimes we can crave a fruit because we need something in there. Like we need the potassium, so we crave the banana, or I find myself craving citrus more this season than I have. And I'm sure it's because my body just needs more of the vitamin C and bioflavonoids in citrus. But I eat it, and then I'm like, I eat one, like, okay, that was good.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking, oh, I got to eat 10. I eat every single orange in my house, and then I'm going to start having fantasies about how I can drive out at 11 o'clock at night and get more oranges. That's like addictive thinking, right?
Yeah.
So I think it depends. If you're so that's what I would say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. I don't know if you've ever read like intuitive eating, and that's one thing that they kind of teach is once you kind of get in tune with your body, your body will kind of tell you what it needs. But I know like especially for our audience, if I'm binging, a lot of those body cues are off, like our stomach receptors, your stomach is probably a little stretched out from the binge eating, and then, purging doesn't make it any better. And then, so there's all these imbalances where your brain goes, I don't know when I'm hungry or when I'm full. So I don't know if there's any natural ways to kind of reset those hunger cues maybe.
That's a really, really good question. There are some things that I have used with people whose hunger cues are off, and oddly, the ones that I tend to use, they're homeopathic accommodation remedies. But just so you know, that the pathway that they're triggering the stress pathway. They're triggering the hypothalamic pituitary axis. They are literally affecting the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, and then all the way down to the adrenals, which would make sense that if you worked on that system in any number of ways, that's going to help rebalance. Because what's happened, your body's gone through a stress and a shock, right? And the normal circadian rhythm, I mean, the body has so many rhythms, and one of the rhythms is when are we hungry, which is based on the circadian rhythm, which gets off when we're stressed. So, you just kind of like, what can we do to bring that back down? So, I don't feel like I have a super quick answer, but
No.
I love that question, you know,
Yeah.
and I have some thoughts, but I feel like I would end up talking for like an hour about that one question if you let me riff.
Well, and one thing you also brought up was sugar addiction. And I think this is fascinating because like they've actually shown in studies with rats that a rat that is addicted to cocaine, if offered cocaine or sugar, it will choose the sugar over the cocaine. And the sugar addiction is actually stronger than the addiction for cocaine. And I thought that was, I was like, oh my gosh.
I know. I saw a headline saying my grandma's a drug dealer.
Yeah. No, that's so true though, because you know, people are so, oh no, I love you. Here's a cookie, and you're like, if you really loved me, you wouldn't push cookies on me, you know?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So, yeah, I agree. And, you know, it's interesting because some people think artificial sweeteners are a better option. They did the same study for saccharin and cocaine, and the rats preferred saccharin over cocaine too.
Yeah.
And sometimes those artificial sweeteners, they heighten the receptors in the brain and can actually make you want even more sweet because they're so intensely flavored. Like there's so much, they so stimulate the receptors on our tongue, which goes to our brain, and it's like sweet, you know, it's like cool, you know, that it's like doing a really big drug bolus. Your body just gets to think that that's what it needs all the time, so it can actually make sugar addiction stuff worse.
Wow.
So
it sounds like sugar is better than artificial sweeteners.
I have to say, I actually think it is, like, for all the problems that sugar brings. And I always say, I mean, I'm with you in terms of, I think the healthiest diet is something that's in moderation. I don't think that we really, any of us, need refined sugar for any purposes. But I also, I mean, I used to be a professional baker. I mean, I used to and I grew up baking. Like, I loved baking stuff. And so I still bake, but I use more natural sugars. And then I balance my body by making sure that I have all the water that I need and all my other nutrients and all of that, so that the sweet thing is just tasting a bit of sweetness of life, and it's as nutrient wholesome as possible.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, I'm not vegan by any stretch of the imagination, but I am trying to add more vegetables to my diet. And one thing they had talked about is, you know, if you're going to eat meat, it's just about limiting it, you know, to the 4 ounces, you know, no more than 4 ounces a day, and then basically countering that with the antioxidants that are in the vegetables. You know, so I guess it's kind of just about balance, you know. And I always say, like people always go, oh, this food is forbidden, this food is forbidden, and I'm like, no. Like, I just try to add more vegetables. That way it kind of crowds out the other stuff, and it fills me up faster.
Yeah, I think that's, especially if you have a history of having disordered eating and eating disorders, that kind of thing, it's so easy for us to get triggered into thinking, you know, anything that you say no to can all of a sudden have so much more power, right?
Oh,
and be so much more seductive. And then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm pissed off, I'm just gonna go do this bad thing because I'm mad. You know? It's like,
I've had a bad day, I deserve a cookie.
Right, exactly. Instead of, so I think that there's some meats that are more inflammatory than others, and it depends a lot on your genetic structure and a lot of other pieces. But I am a huge fan of that plate being either all plant or 75% plant.
Yeah.
And so that could be, you know, some lovely, you know, sweet potatoes or squash, winter squash, and then some steamed or sauteed vegetables, or big frickin' salad with tons of stuff. And I'm always for eat the rainbow, you know, eat as many colors as you can, grate some beets on that salad. And it just is so much more fulfilling.
We had what we call Buddha bowls tonight.
Oh, yum.
And it's kind of where you throw like quinoa in, and then you kind of just throw all kinds of different colors of vegetables in.
Yeah, yum, love it. Those are so good. And your very first question, you're talking about, digestion and mood, and they've actually done studies to show for people who eat more vegetables, the next day they have a better mood. So you start talking about, if you're in a depressive slump, and that depressive slump is driving you to eat less and less kind of, vegetables and fresh foods and that kind of thing, it can make it worse. But if you can just find yourself in a place where you can just go, oh, you know what? I'm going to steam up some broccoli tonight, and then tomorrow morning I do the sauteed spinach with my eggs. And for lunch, I'm going to have a bunch of carrots and celery, or make a huge salad, or whatever it is that you like, roast up a vegetables. I mean, whatever it is that fills you up, and just start adding those in. I mean, literally, it affects your brain chemistry to the point where you have a better mood, like the next day.
Yeah.
And I think about this for teens too, teenagers, for our kids, let's feed them vegetables.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting that you bring up kids, because I don't know how many people say, I keep these things in the house because the kids eat them. And I tell you, I wish my parents had just said, because kids eat what's in front of them. And then, that creates the taste and your metabolism, for the rest of your life. So you're like, okay, I wish you had, gotten me hooked on vegetables.
Yeah. We had a vacation with my boys, and I cooked up sauteed some vegetables for breakfast, some leeks and some chard and stuff like that, and mushrooms all together. And it just made my heart sing as they were fighting over the last of the vegetables. And I just felt like, of all the mistakes I've made as a mom, because we make mistakes, or things we wish we could do different, I was like, at least I got my kids to eat vegetables.
Yeah.
I had won that one.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because a lot of people will say, my kid's a really picky eater. And I'm like, well, do you eat a lot of vegetables? Well, not really. And it's like, oh, well, I wonder where they learned that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I, having been a physician and seeing a lot of families come through my clinic over the last 20 years, and then watching my friends and my family members and my kids, I think it's sort of this combination. Like we tend to come out with some sort of a little bit of a blueprint of what we're willing to do and not willing to do. And then family culture has a huge impact on what happens with that blueprint, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it feels like it's this combination of both. And I just think it's so, important to definitely introduce kids to, vegetables, but then also you don't want to create more trauma around food, right? It's such a tricky thing. I had this great story from this woman who I love, Tarona Lodog. She's a medical doctor. She's also a Native American. She dropped out of school when she was in high school and had kids. And then she got her GED, and then she went back to school and became an MD. And she said her son refused to eat anything except green beans, peas, and carrots. And so she decided she didn't want to create trauma at the dinner table. She ate everything. So she's like, that's fine. You just have to eat those every day. And so every single day, it was like, that was sort of their deal. Like, you can just eat things. Yeah.
Wow. Well, at least he had some variety in there then.
Right. A little bit. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Well, and one interesting thing that I heard you talk about in your last talk was about glutamine and how it helps with sugar addiction. Can you kind of explain like how that helps and exactly what it does in that whole process?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's interesting with glutamine because what we've figured out is that people who have alcohol addiction in the family and sugar addiction, it's sort of the same type of chemistry in the brain.
Yeah.
And it can be in the same person or it can be in a different person. It can skip generations and be like, oh, grandpa knew that he needed to have his drink.
Yeah.
And then it can skip a generation and then, and then you can end up with a sugar addiction. Yeah. Or, it can be, or it's like, oh yeah, my parents were alcoholics. I don't have that problem, but I have to have my sugar. It's such an interesting thing. So if that's part of your story, I would definitely especially think about glutamine. So glutamine affects the brain receptors, and it can decrease our cravings for sugar or simple carbohydrates, and which is great. And it works pretty quickly. Like if you know that you have a window where you tend to crave things, for a lot of women, I think it's that I'm driving home from work and I'm going to enter the house, and then I need to start phase 3 of my day of being with kids, making dinner, just like all that stress transition stuff. And that tends to be a time when people are tired and they go for, the glass of wine, or they go for the candy bar or something, just to, a little bit of something to get me through this next few hours, right? So that's a really good time, if you know that about yourself, that you take some glutamine before you drive home. It's about 45 minutes before your craving time, and take, some people find that 500 milligrams is about what they need. And I just have to say, I'm not treating or diagnosing any of you guys. You just need to check with your providers and make sure it's a good match for you. But that's what I have seen in my clinic, and what I've seen work really, really well for people. Or some people find just taking it a couple times a day really reduces their cravings overall, and it's just not such an issue for them. I also love it because glutamine also helps heal a leaky gut. So we go back to the whole digestion thing, and you want to optimize your digestion. Some of us have this leaky gut, which I talk about in the Gut Healthy program.
Yeah.
And how you really want to have those gut walls tight, and glutamine will help heal that up. So I love it, because anytime you can get something that does more than one thing, I'm like, that's a good deal. Right? Yeah.
And if any of you out there need motivation to not have a leaky gut, basically what she's saying is that the waste that's in your intestine leaks into the rest of your body. I mean, I've said that correctly, right?
Sort of.
I was like,
exactly like, yeah.
Could you describe leaky gut then, just briefly?
Sure. So if you think about your intestines are a bunch of cells and the cell wall, and you want to have those junctions, I don't know if you can see, you want to have those junctions super tight like that. What happens with inflammation, it's just like any tissue that gets swollen. I mean, you just sort of think if you soak something in water, it can get kind of swollen a little bit. And what happens is that the junctions get loose. So there are gaps between the cells, and these are the cells in the lining of your intestines. There are actual gaps in them. So a couple things happen with leaky gut. One is we tend to not be breaking down our food. Maybe we may not be breaking down our foods completely. And I always think of Legos. So those of you with kids know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So a Lego, so you think about a Lego when you have little Lego pieces, and then you have the thing that you made. So say you've got the whole Star Wars spaceship thing, and that's like your hamburger, right? And it's all together in one form. So you eat that thing. And what's supposed to happen when you eat the hamburger is it's supposed to break down into all these different types of pieces in your digestive system, like amino acids, and into fats, and into other things that get rebuilt into other types of structures. They start to support your immune globulins. They build your hormones. They give you energy for your brain to function, for you to run. All these things you want that hamburger to break down. So this is kind of like taking that big huge starship you built from Legos, and you want to break it down into each individual tiny little piece, so you can build some new cool thing. What happens in leaky gut is we tend to not break all those things down. So you're kind of there with it's a chunk. It's a little bit of a chunk of this spaceship. It's a little chunk of this. And you've got those circulating down in your digestive tract, and they slip through in the bloodstream. They slip through here. So you've got these large, what we call macromolecules. They're these big things, these pieces of the Lego chunks circulating in your blood. And your immune system looks at that and it goes, I don't recognize that. I mean, it's used to seeing the little individual Lego pieces, the amino acids, and it doesn't recognize it. And so it starts to attack it. And this is how we get food sensitivities. This is how we get sensitive to dairy and to gluten and to soy and things like that. And so that's what can happen with leaky gut. So you really want to have your gut, and it leads to more inflammation and more digestive distress. And a lot of us have it. And it takes a little while to get it all set back up again.
Wow. No, this is what I actually really loved about your talk, because, you know, I'm not a medical doctor, so I love it when someone can take a complex concept and break it down into something that I can understand. And I can understand Legos.
Good.
So that's good. Yeah, but no, I thought that was fascinating. And then, so you talk about supplements like glutamine, like, you know, I know this is one thing I struggle with is like, when I go to the supplement store, there, you know, there's all these brands of different supplements, and you're going, how do I know, you know, what is going to be a good product, what my body is going to use, you know, what, you know, and what, you know, is just a waste of my money.
Yeah. I wish I had 100% great answer for you for that. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, so if I go into a store, I choose to, if I'm going to buy a supplement off the shelf, I choose to go, first of all, I try to go to a store where I think the buyers are doing a decent job. So you know, I find some of the co-ops, like the health co-ops in my town, do an excellent job with choosing who they're going to buy from. They have a really nice relationship with their buyers. They want to make sure they have high quality products in their shelf. A lot of the large natural food, health food stores, the ones that sell, you know, they sell supplements and really good organic foods and a lot of non-GMO, you know that they've already taken a stand for health. They're already making a stand. Like we want to buy people, we want ethically sourced products. Some of them are chains. And I think honestly, a lot of them do a really good job with buying products. So for me, that already takes down a barrier of like, okay, pretty good chance that when I'm in here looking for something, I can feel good about it.
Yeah.
If I'm in just a pharmacy off the wall, I mean, it's different where you live in Germany. I mean, I would assume it is.
I can't read most of the labels.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of places in Europe and other places around the world. Standard pharmacies do a much better job bringing in high quality natural products. In the United States, most of the conventional pharmacies, a lot of the natural products, I'm super suspicious that they're not going to be that great, and I don't like their formulations. So I mean, I don't have I want to make sure there aren't a lot of binders in there. I don't want artificial colors or flavorings in there. I want it to, you know, I ask if I can. I ask about it. So, yeah.
And what forms does glutamine come in? I mean, are they gel capsules? Are they hard pills? I mean, what form is the best type to take?
Oh, it's such a good question. So it can come in a capsule or in a powder. It's a white crystalline powder. It's fairly flavorless. And so you can just get a tub of just the powder, and it should just be glutamine in there. Maybe a little bit of something else to make it so it doesn't stick. An anti-caking agent might be in there, or you can get capsules. So not a gel. It's either powder capsules or the powder itself. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing that, in full transparency, I had to look up adaptogens. I was like, adaptogens? What does an adaptogen do?
Oh, that's such good feedback. I'll be more clear about that next time. Thank you.
No. So my question was, could you talk about adaptogens? Because I know that a lot of times eating is driven by stress. And so this is definitely a good topic for the audience.
Yeah, adaptogens are amazing. Adaptogens are things, usually plants, herbs, that help your body modulate your stress. And your stress, when we're in a stress situation, we can be in this place where we're not responding to stress accurately. Like, you know, we tend to experience a lot of stress in this world. Like we just live in a stressful society, and it's really easy for our stress response to get thrown off kilter. And that can mean that you may be in a place where you have what's called a high cortisol state. Cortisol is one of your stress hormones that can come out. You can be in a high cortisol state or a low cortisol state, kind of depending on how long you've been stressed out and how your body is adapting to it. Adaptogens are amazing because no matter where you are on the spectrum, if you're super high cortisol or low cortisol, they adapt to you. Like adaptogens adapt to you. If your cortisol is high, it brings it down. If your cortisol is low, it brings it up. Now that said, there's some subtleties that we can say, oh, well, maybe you want to choose this adaptogen over this one, and we can kind of get fun and artsy and crafty and medical with our different herbs. But in general, people can take adaptogenic herbs and trust that there's going to be some benefit for them to help modulate their stress. And it gives you more emotional resilience and bandwidth when you take them.
So now when you say that does that mean it's kind of like an anti-anxiety, or is it that the inflammation from the stress is not as great, or?
It depends on I would say yes and yes, but it really depends on how stress affects you, because we all stress, it affects us differently. So I've taken adaptogens a lot in my time because as a medical student, as a mom, as somebody who suffered from chronic fatigue, I've experienced a lot of low energy and stress. And I've found that adaptogens will help bring up my energy. And when I have more energy, I am less likely to get triggered and feel anxious about something, because I just feel like, oh yeah, I got this, no problem.
Yeah.
I went a few years without needing to take any, and I was in London, and I had grabbed this free bottle I'd been given of some adaptogens, and I just happened to start taking them when I was in London. And what was super cool was I was taking them and I found myself riding on the London tube, which can be stressful, or just being in a new city with all the all the craziness going on. I was just having fun. Like me and my kid were pretending we were surfing on the tube. And I just felt like I just could relax and enjoy where I was. And it just lowered my stress. And so that will also, yes, decrease your inflammation, because it's when we're in that, oh, I got to keep going. Oh no, what's going to happen? That we create more inflammation in our body, and actually affects this thing called anxiety can up something called interleukin-6, which is a cytokine in our inflammatory cascade. So it actually decreases that if we're more calm.
Yeah. I was surprised. I went off to this health retreat, and I had taken, when I got back, they gave me a cortisol test. And
cool.
the one I had done was,
is a spit test?
No, the one I took was a urine test.
Oh, okay.
But they had you do it upon waking up, and then around 10 o'clock, and it was like 4 times during the day, and then if you woke up at night, you took it again. And it was shocking. I knew I was kind of stressed out, but it was like I woke up, and as soon as I woke up, I was already stressed out, and then it just continued to spike. And then it kind of plateaued, but at a really high plateau. And then it came down a little bit before bed, but it was still extremely high. And, so I was like, oh my gosh, like, no wonder I feel so like wound up and so like tense all the time.
Yes.
So,
yeah, exactly. I call that being like, you wake up and you already have the internal espresso machine going.
Yeah.
And it can be invigorating on some level. Like if you're a doer, like you and I are, we're like, oh yeah, I have all this energy to do. But it's not that really good feeling kind of energy.
Oh yeah.
It's that kind of, it's kind of like that, oh, I drank too much bad coffee kind of energy. Like,
especially towards the end of the day.
Yes, right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And often, I don't know if this is the case for you, but often when people have that high cortisol throughout the day, or if it's high at nighttime, they have a hard time sleeping, or their sleep doesn't feel as nourishing. Is that the case for you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so that was actually going to be my next question. So when you are so amped up, before bed, how do you bring all that down?
Yeah. So I would say that just the one, or like of all the adaptogenic herbs out there, the one that's really awesome for that kind of ramped up, have a hard time to sleep, is ashwagandha. Is a great herb for that. So looking for a formulation or getting ashwagandha as an herb to take can be really helpful for that super ramped up, a little bit anxious, and having a hard time calming down. So as much as you can do in the daytime to start calming yourself down and getting yourself in a more consistent, regular circadian rhythm, like all the things that I talk about in the Get Healthy, Stay Healthy, will really help you so that you can unwind before bed. Now, but that said, the actual bedtime process, couple different things. I always say, you know how we have triggers? We're like, oh, I got so triggered. You know, I got so pissed off at that person, or I got so triggered I ate all the chocolate or something like that. I always say, like, use a trigger for the positive. Train your brain to use triggers for the positive. So if we set triggers for our brain so that it knows it's bedtime, it starts to begin to think like, oh, bedtime's coming soon. So for me, it's I do those little detox routine every night where I do skin brushing and use some castor oil, and I take a bath and Epsom salt bath. And these are my wind down. I know I'm going to bed. My brain knows that as much as I've been jamming on whatever I've been working on up until bedtime, as soon as I start this ritual, it starts to go, oh, and like a little kid does, it's book, bath, and bedtime. It's time to calm down.
Yeah.
That's key. All of the hygiene stuff that you know, that we all know, you know, the no screens an hour before, dark room, those things are all great. But what I love to do is to journal before bed, and this has helped so many people. Do you journal before bed? Do you do any kind of journaling?
I do sometimes. I would say that
Yeah.
I'm a little guilty of that screen time thing. You know, usually bedtime is when I put the laptop cover down. So, yeah, but you know, it's on my to-do list, you know, like, oh, you need to really ingrain this wind down routine. And I know that that's the one thing I'm missing.
Yeah. So, I mean, personally, I'm able to do screens up until late and I'm able to sleep okay. But if I was having sleep problems, I would turn the screens off an hour before. You know, it's sort of, it depends where you're at. Again, there is no black and white that hits everybody's needs. Yeah. But I had to really work on my sleep for years because I did go through a period where it was really rough and I had to drill this in. So I do my ritual and journaling before bed. There's two different ways. One is to just do a brain dump, where you put your pen on paper and you just write out everything that's in your brain for 10 minutes. It's amazing. This lowers blood pressure. It's been studied to lower blood pressure. It's incredible. And that's one of my favorite ones, to just get it out. And then I love just using, I mean, essential oils can be great. There's a lot of different really healthy homeopathic remedies or magnesium, things like that, that can really help your body calm down. And then I sort of have this list of, like, you start here, if that doesn't work, then you go here. And there's just so much you can do to help your sleep.
Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting about your talk was, because a lot of people use melatonin for sleep, but you were talking about melatonin for your immune system.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. It can help with the immune system, and it helps. It's something of an anti-inflammatory as well. And it's interesting because people think, oh, it's like a drug, but it's not. It's interesting what melatonin does in the brain is it actually triggers the piece where it lowers your body temperature, which then signals a whole chemical cascade in your body to let you know it's time to go into to go to sleep and to stay in a deep sleep. And so it actually just kind of triggers this whole process. No, it was fascinating. And I will say, like, I learned so much from your talk, and this is why I wanted to bring you on, because I know you have an upcoming talk, which I am definitely going to watch, because I'm sure that your brain has forgotten more than I know about these things. So I am definitely looking forward to it. So one last question, because this was absolutely, like, one of my favorite things, other than the panda. So I'll just throw that out there as a teaser. I have to watch the panda, because that was absolutely, like when I tried that, I was like, oh my gosh, this really works. So watch out for the panda, and when you see it, you will know what I'm talking about. But you also had this really amazing mindset hack. And I just want you to kind of relay that into how people can kind of weave that into their recovery with an eating disorder. Yeah, sure. Sounds great. I actually would love to do this with you if we can. So let me explain what the mindset hack is, because I think that's I love that as a question, and I would love for us to figure it out together. Okay. So one of the mindset hacks that I teach in the program is how you can shift you can decide if you want to be sick or not, and you can shift your immune system to not get sick. And this is a tool that I've used myself, and I've taught many, many people since about how to use it. And I've gotten good feedback that's like, people say, yeah, this works for me too. Yeah. And it's really, you ask yourself a series of questions. You say, do I want to get sick? And if the answer is yes, I kind of do, like I kind of want that break, I kind of want that day off, then you think, okay, well, is there some other way I can get this need met? You know, maybe if I promise myself that I'm going to take Tuesday afternoon off, then, you know, and just chill out, turn everything off, just have time for me time, then do I still need to get sick? And usually by then the answer is no, I don't really want to get sick. Because if you remind yourself how it feels to get sick, you don't really want to get sick, even if you do get a day off, right? Yeah. You know? It's like, actually, no. And then you ask yourself, okay, well, is there some other, then you say, then you can check and say, you start to create a statement around, I'm healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then I just shift yourself. And you're basically shifting yourself into this whole other brain state. And I was just thinking how to do this for somebody with an eating disorder. Mm-hmm. And so why don't you give me some situations where you think it might be, where you would imagine using it, and then let's see if we can craft the statement to be different.
Well, I know that one thing that my eating did for me was, you know, whenever my emotions were high and you know, I was having a bad day and I was tired, and you know, it was like this release. You know, it was like my way to just kind of numb everything down, and just, you know, somehow that really full feeling and then the purging just made me feel good. But afterwards, you don't feel good. And then there's all these negative emotions that come into it. And so I think that's why I loved your hack so much, because, you know, the power of the brain is so strong. Like you can use your brain to be sick, or you can use your brain to be healthy. And
right.
Yeah, so that, I think that's what I love so much about it, is that you, like, once you engage your brain, you know, to say, you know what, I am strong, you know, my emotions are stable, you know, I am happy, I am, you know, thriving, you know, just those words, because the words I used to say to myself is, I'm a disaster, I'm a mess, I'm, you know, like any bad word you could think of, you know, those were the words I was using.
Yeah. Let me just back up for the audience so that they understand the impact of this practice that I've done. So the first time that I used it, it was the end of a clinic day. It was cold and flu season. I'd seen a whole bunch of patients who were really sick. And at the end of the day, I started to feel really sick, and I was coming down with the flu. Like I woke up feeling great, and I had 101 fever as I was doing my charts. Like I was sick, and I don't usually get fevers. And I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to cancel out my whole week. I'm going to be down for a while. I'm just trying to, you know, running through all of this in my head as I was driving home. I sat in the driveway, and I just learned some of the power, some tricks of diving into the subconscious mind and the power there.
Yeah.
And so I tried this, where I was like, do I want to get sick? No, I don't. And then I asked myself, I kind of did a little muscle testing. Am I healthy or am I not? Mm-hmm. And I was sick. And I was like, well, do I want to be healthy? Yes, I do. And then I said, I'm healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I'm healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I just set that in my subconscious mind by crossing my legs and then my arms like this. Yeah. You cross your arms and your legs. And this is called a whole brain posture, and it balances your right and left side of your brain. And I just sat there with this until I felt an energetic shift in my body. I could tell it was subtle, but it was real. It was like this little shift right here. And as soon as I felt that, I decided to just not walk in my house. I didn't say anything to my family about anything that I had gone through. Had dinner, went upstairs. As I was going to bed, I did it again. And I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and I was fine, like no fever or anything. So I'm thinking for you, the reason I wanted to do this with you, because I think that when we get triggered for bulimia or something like that, we're for an eating, for any kind of trigger, for any kind of automatic response, it's like you have to catch it in time, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you had some I'm just thinking sticky notes like around the fridge, like whatever your statement is, or in your cupboard, or around your bathroom, you know, kind of where your places are, or in your car, or if you set on your phone, like, you know, that it's at the end, like you said, you're stressed at the end of the day. You started sticking in your phone at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, a trigger that went off that said, I am vital and worthy and full of love, and I choose how to manage, you know, I live the life I desire. Some, you know, something that's like super, super there. And then if you feel like you're kind of going into that, like, you can feel that part of your brain that's, you know, fighting that, you can, there's a nice little door opening way. Like, sometimes if we're in a really bad space, your brain goes, no, that's so untrue. It doesn't want to hear it. But if you say, I allow myself to experience myself being lovable and worthy, it's kind of like you're opening the door. You're not standing on the mountain and claiming it, but you're opening the door to the possibility of like, I am worthy of love and jealous. And then I think doing the whole brain posture with whatever your statement is would be amazing. And the thing that would be so cool about this is that the more you do this, you begin to create new neural networks in your brain. And it gets easier, you know this, it gets easier and easier to find that feeling and that pathway whenever you do.
No, that's amazing. It's like you talk about reminders on my phone. When my alarm goes off in the morning, it says alive to your life. You know,
love it.
Like, okay, I'm alive to my life. Okay, got it.
Love it. That is a great one. That is so cool. That's so cool. And so that would be a great one. You could even incorporate that in because it's already in your brain and it feels so good in the morning. Like, you could do I'm alive to my life in the afternoon, and then add maybe a few more things in there for like your afternoon piece. That's beautiful.
No, it's amazing because even in my gym, because like what you're talking about is sometimes it's a stretch too far. So in my gym, it says I'm strong and getting stronger because, you know, that's something that I can, you know, I'm right here right now, but I'm getting stronger every single day. I'm growing every single day. And that was something that my brain could really sign up to. You know, it's like, okay, I accept where I am now. But, you know, that doesn't mean I'm going to stay here.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Jenny, as always, it is always a pleasure to chat with you, and I always learn more. So if you guys want to learn more, because I'm not even exaggerating, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what you're going to learn on her upcoming talk. And it actually starts this Tuesday, and it goes through Thursday. And what time is it? I forgot to ask you.
It's 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, so Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. We go from 10 to 12 with the workshop piece, and then I'm going to do live Q&A from 12 to 1. So there's live Q&A, and as soon as you guys sign up, you're going to get an email from me. And what I want are your questions. Like, what is it that's burning in your mind? What are your top health questions? And then I will incorporate that into the workshop or into the Q&A session. And then you can follow up with more questions during the Q&A. So it's really for you to be able to experience more health, more confidence, and just be able to feel better in your body this day and for the rest of your life, because that is what we all need. So we can shine our light, you know? I mean, that's my thing. Like, get as healthy as you can so we can be the best that we are, you know?
Well, and you mentioned the Q&A, and I thought I had learned a lot on the talk itself, but when people got into the Q&A, I'm like, wow, these people have really good questions. You know, and so if I have questions that, you know, are personal to me, you know, hey, I'm struggling with this, like Jenny, I was like, wow, Jenny is really smart. Like she knows a lot about how to be healthy and how to take care of yourself and how to like thrive in life. And I think that's why I had such a connection with your message. It was just this, you know, the more you take care of yourself, the more, you know, your light is able to shine. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was such a beautiful message, you know? But she mentioned her website where you can go to sign up. And if you look in the notes below, I'm going to put a link there too. I'm going to say it now, and then there's going to be another card at the end where it has her website also, so that you absolutely cannot miss it. I mean, if you miss it, like you have really missed a treat for the week. If you go to her website, it's going to be Dr. Jenny, Jenny, and I'm going to spell this last one because I know that it's a difficult one. It's going to be Tufenkian as in Nancy, Kian as in Nancy.com. And you go there, you sign up, and again, that's going to be Tuesday through Thursday, and you will be glad that you joined. So don't miss it. And if you also want to have someone to go with you on your journey with an eating disorder, you can go to my website at ourworldempowered.com. You know, there's some free stuff there too, but the first thing that I always tell people is that before you start getting into the tough stuff, the really deep mind dive, you want to get your foundations of health down. And when we're tired and our brain isn't functioning properly, therapy is going to work, but it's going to be slow, it's going to be frustrating. So what Jenny is teaching you is really step one. Step one, well, it's really 1 through 10, because it's a lot, but it'll give you that energy and that vitality in order to fully dive into your full recovery and just to really just live into it, to a whole new life. So Jenny, I am looking forward to, and thankfully I'm in Germany, so I am 9 hours ahead. So that means coming home from work, I can put my jammies on and I can listen to your talk. So I am so psyched about that. But thank you so much. I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say I have learned so much, and you are such a wonderful, just warm person, and just being with you, it makes me healthy. So thank you so much, and you are always welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just a joy to be with you as well, and I would love to come back. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much.
We're gonna hold her to that, right?
Thank you. So
okay, great. And tune in next time, and I'm sure we will have another exciting talk. But until then, get out there and love, live, and connect. Okay, talk to you next time.